Hello everybody, so the BattleBots final has just happened and it happened 3 weeks ago. Sorry, I'm a little bit late to the party, but did you really think I was going to let the BattleBots 2020 final go by and not say anything about it? If you did, you don't know me at all. It was an explosive end to what has been a really thrilling season. Like, the season started off, everyone was so hyped because it was happening, even though COVID was also happening. And it started off really well. Then it took a kind of little bit of a dip in the middle, a few dead fights here and there. But by the time we were reaching the end of the fight cards, it had really picked up the pace, and we were getting some of the best fights of the whole reboot in the fight cards and the round of 32 and the round of 16. And that continued into the final. It was an absolutely incredible episode. I remember watching it 3 weeks ago and just feeling it was just incredible. So I've got lots of things I need to say about some of these fights. So let's get straight into it. Whatever the first one was, I forgot already. I was just kidding. Of course, it was Endgame versus Shatter, and this was a really interesting one because my gut kind of told me that Endgame was going to win because it's the 4-wheel drive vertical spinner against the Hammerbot, but Shatter had been surpassing my expectations all season, and I think it surpassed everyone's expectations this season. Like, when was the last time a Hammerbot made it to the quarterfinals? I think the last time was Beta, and Shatter is different to Beta because Shatter is fearless. Shatter isn't afraid to go weapon to weapon. It's not afraid to shove its hammer right into the opponent's spinner. And its magnets and just general kind of design of the armor makes it really difficult for forks and wedgelets and things to get underneath the robot and actually fling it through the air like a typical vertical spinner would do to a typical hammerbot. So it's a very difficult robot to fight, but Endgame, I think, did a really good job at getting around the back of Shatter, where I suppose it's easier to get underneath, and left some horrible damage. Like, the Shatter team in their post-fight breakdown that they have on their YouTube channel, it's really interesting. They were showing some of the damage. Obviously, some of the ablative armor got taken off, the forks were bent beyond belief, and Endgame took huge bites out of the actual billet chassis and the titanium armor that Shatter has to protect itself. Endgame just absolutely ferocious. They managed to get round to the back of Shatter and repeatedly just push it into the screws, push it wherever they wanted. My hope for Shatter was that they would fire the hammer and possibly snipe Endgame's weapon belt, or just do something that would stop the weapon if they fired the hammer. I thought that would happen, but it didn't. Endgame's weapon was vicious. It kept spinning. It's important to know that up until this point, Endgame had only been running on half power since one of his weapon ESCs was dead and no one noticed. You can always count on Endgame to deliver big hits. It's like the Ariana Grande of BattleBots. Shatter, it's a bit sad that they took so much damage, but I think that it's going to come back next season, learning from that damage and be even more scary. We move on to Black Dragon versus Ribbot, and this fight proved two things to me. It proved two things, mainly. Black Dragon is the toughest thing that ever entered the battle box, that ever will enter the battle box. You could throw it into the Pacific Ocean and it would probably still be driving along the bottom of the seabed, just with no trouble. It survived the whole, well, like half the match being completely engulfed in flames, and that was mightily impressive, obviously. And it also proved that, for me, Ribbot, in its vertical spinner configuration, seems to lack the lethal power of, say, Black Dragon, for example. It's good at nibbling, it takes parts off, it does damage, it can flip robots over, but it doesn't land the big hit, the big punch that an Endgame or a Black Dragon would land. It just seems to struggle with that. So Ribbot, for this fight, essentially went in with almost no hope of killing Black Dragon, from my perspective. The thing that they had to do was just to win the judge's decision, in my opinion, because I didn't see what they could do to Black Dragon, because Black Dragon is lower to the ground, and it demonstrated this. It flung Ribbot through the air many times, and Ribbot just couldn't really fight back from that. Obviously, Ribbot, I believe, did manage to get a big hit with its spinner that ultimately caused the fire in Black Dragon. I'm not sure what actually caused that. I don't think the team mentioned, but Ribbot managed to damage something and obviously set Black Dragon on fire for more than half of the match, and I just cannot fathom how Black Dragon was able to keep driving while its internals were supposedly on fire. Like, they must be really, really well insulated inside the robot, really well protected, and the fire spread dramatically throughout the robot, and it just kept on. It just kept on going, and obviously, Black Dragon, once it loses its primary weapon, it's still just as lethal, because it's almost, in a way, the drum spinner is not the primary weapon. It's the fact that it can push you all over the battle box for 3 minutes and just won't let you go, and it won't stop. And Ribot suffered. Ribot really suffered because it had no way of pushing Black Dragon while it was inverted, and its weapon, it was either not spinning or not spinning fast enough, or it wasn't powerful enough to actually continue to damage Black Dragon, and Black Dragon took advantage of that, even though it was engulfed in flames, which was really awesome to watch. And Black Dragon has been very quietly successful this year, and this fight just proved how durable they were, and that they could dish out big hits still as well. So, good run for Ribot, but it ended against one of the toughest machines that we've ever seen. From there, we moved on to one of the biggest upsets of the season, in my opinion, Tantrum versus Sawblades. Obviously, we'd just seen Tantrum beat Bloodsport, but Bloodsport, there was something different about it. I thought that Tantrum would be able to combat that design easily, but Sawblades is known for scooping up robots. It's known for controlling them around the arena, especially smaller robots like Tantrum. And Tantrum just completely... They went in with their wedge and somehow managed to get underneath Sawblades' like pontoon wedge things that are hinged, and it managed to get underneath them, and I still don't know how. And it just, for 3 minutes straight, humiliated Sawblades. And I don't mean just one hit, just one hit and Sawblades is dead. Perfect driving from Aaron Hill for 3 minutes absolutely humiliated Sawblades. We know Sawblades is like this lethal, vicious, fast, powerful robot, but fighting Tantrum just made it look weak and cumbersome and clumsy, because every time they turned to scoop up Tantrum and they turned to face Tantrum, Tantrum was already at the side, or it had bent up the wedges, and Sawblades couldn't fight back from that. So Sawblades falls at the quarterfinals again, and it should have done better. It felt like it should have gone further, but Tantrum has just been ruining people's seasons. Like Bloodsport and Sawblades, these were robots that we thought were going to be finalists, but Tantrum has just come through out of nowhere and just absolutely broken everybody's brackets, and I'm so happy for it. I love Tantrum now. That was fantastic. So, a really, really good fight. Sawblades, they tried their best. They almost scooped up Tantrum a few times, but just couldn't quite keep hold of them. Tantrum was already escaping, so excellent driving from Aaron Hill, and they really deserved that win. This was an excellent fight. If there was any robot that was going to outdrive the number 1 seed for 3 minutes and take wherever it wants and do whatever it wants with it, it was going to be Whiplash. Hydra had such a terrible draw against Whiplash, because Whiplash, you can throw it through the air and it's going to crash down, and it's just going to flip itself back over again and keep coming at you. And it got underneath Hydra. It bent up Hydra's wedgelets with its spinner. Like, this is the thing. Whiplash, people say, oh, they should ditch the spinner. It should just be a lifter. Or, oh, they should ditch the lifter. It should just be a spinner. It needs both of its weapons. That's the key to its success. It needs both of them, because it does this like sort of balance of damage and just like taking pits off. It just takes wedgelets off. It bends wedges up. It does all sorts with its spinner, but it controls the fight with its lifter as well. They work so well together, those two weapons. And Hydra, even with all the flipping power and as much defensive driving as they could muster, even they couldn't beat Whiplash when it was on form like this. And of course, we can't forget about Whiplash's fork wedgelet things as well. Everyone's doing that now. I believe it was one of the Minotaur team who said that wedgelets are coming to the USA, and they certainly are. They certainly are. So, again, not much to say about this fight, except that Whiplash just dominated, as they usually do. In their usual fashion, they just took advantage of Hydra. Hydra put up a good fight, but it wasn't really enough. You could tell they were going for the Uta out of the arena, but they didn't get it. And if you take Whiplash to a judge's decision, the chances are you're going to lose. So, Hydra lost, and Whiplash advances through. An excellent fight. Again, all of these fights were excellent. So after that quarter-final round, we had 4 semi-finalists left, and they were Tantrum, Endgame, Black Dragon, and Whiplash. A very unique bunch of robots when you think about it. So, we had Tantrum versus Endgame first up, and after the Sawblades fight and the Bloodsport fight, I was prepared to be shocked by Tantrum's success once again. And at the beginning of this fight, it was controlling Endgame all over the place. They had they had them pinned against the wall for a while, but you could tell that Endgame, such an underrated driver, like, you can tell that they're just so, they know what their opponent's going to do, and they know perfectly when to pick their shots. They know when to sort of hang back with the weapon and let their opponent drive around them, and they don't go in for an attack unless they know that it's gonna be a good hit. So you could see that when Tantrum was trying to control Endgame and sort of lure it towards the side of the battle box, Endgame just wasn't having any of it, which is why Tantrum, I think, found it difficult to control Endgame. However, it was still doing a decent job. Endgame was landing hits on Tantrum every now and again. Obviously, it had the forks as well. But then something came out of Tantrum. A black and brown plume of smoke just erupted from the front right side of the robot, I believe. And at first, I thought that it was like the battery or something, but apparently, Tantrum's weapon is a hub motor, and it has wires that they run towards the motor past the sliding carriage, and because it's a punching spinner, sometimes those wires fall out of place and they actually get caught in the robot, and that's what happened here. The carriage damaged the wires and the ESC exploded, which is why the black and brown plume of smoke came. I'm saying this like I know what I'm talking about, but it's only because I asked the Endgame team what happened literally a few minutes ago, so that's the only reason why I know what happened there. I would never have guessed that. Yeah, so Tantrum's punching spinner mechanism ultimately became its downfall in this fight as it lost its weapon. And Endgame took advantage of that, and it was one huge hit, and Tantrum was flipped over, and I believe they couldn't self-right. And their run has come to an end. They had surpassed everyone's expectations, or certainly mine at least. But I think Tantrum this season has become everyone's sort of new favourite robot. It's just such a cool robot. It's such a cool theme. And it's just so nice to see it doing well after 2 years of kind of them still trying to figure out their design, and they've got it really dialed in now, so that's excellent to see. Endgame moves on to the final, the first international robot in the final in 2 seasons, I believe. The last one we had was Minotaur from Brazil in 2018, and Endgame from New Zealand was in the finals, and they were going to face the winner of Whiplash versus Black Dragon. Whiplash versus Black Dragon was a thing. It was a driving match, and it was always going to be a driving match, and Whiplash tends to win driving matches. It's a very well-driven, very well-controlled robot, of course, and as I said before, both weapons on Whiplash were used equally. They were used equally because they used their spinner to essentially just rip one of Black Dragon's mini wedgelets clean off the robot, and then use the lifter to just control the robot for the rest of the fight. And Black Dragon didn't really have an answer to that. Once they were flipped over, they were on the back foot for the whole match, and Whiplash, that's what it's designed to do. That's the situation that it loves to be in, is just complete control of the other robot. And they demonstrated that perfectly. Black Dragon, again with the configurations, like, they've made it to the semi-finals, which is incredible. It's a really awesome robot. But I think perhaps last year's Black Dragon, which had the long kind of triangular forks, I feel like that would have perhaps held up to Whiplash's spinner a bit better. I get that the wedge provides protection as well, but was it really necessary? Because it gave Whiplash a lot of surface area at the front to get under that just wouldn't have existed if they'd gone with their longer forks. So interesting choice from Black Dragon in terms of the configuration. There's not much more to say about this fight. Like, I could sit here for minutes making stuff up to talk about, but it was just a routine win for Whiplash. It just happened to be in the semi-finals, and unfortunately Black Dragon's run came to an end. Although it had a good run, it had an excellent run. But it was Whiplash well, obviously just Whiplash won the match, isn't it? Not much more to say about that. And just like that, after over 3 months of robot fighting, we finally have our 2 finalists. We have Endgame, who's never even made the top 16 bracket before, coming all the way from New Zealand, And we have Whiplash, who has been so close to making the finals before, but never has. And both of them have now got the opportunity to win the giant nut. Really, really interesting stuff. So you've got Endgame in the middle, at the beginning of the fight, and you can just feel the fear that the weapon produces. Whiplash was forced to drive circles all around Endgame, and that automatically gives Endgame the upper hand, since Whiplash is trying to stay away from Endgame's weapon, but it's also trying to land an attack on Endgame's sides as well. So they've got to both avoid the weapon, but also not be so defensive that Endgame finds an opportunity to hit them. So Whiplash has already got a really, really tough job to do, and Endgame exploited that. They picked their moments to attack really, really well. They stayed away from Whiplash's lifter at the start, and then they pinned it against the screws, and just started nibbling the side of Whiplash and then the inside of Whiplash. Yeah, it was a bit strange seeing Endgame literally inches away from ripping the whole lifter off. Actually, that would have been brutal if it had reached the back there. But Whiplash got away and was almost, I guess, getting underneath Endgame's forks. Like, lots of robots, they use wedgelets, but these two were using forks, like proper long forks. And I guess Endgame's just works better, since they managed to chase Whiplash into the corner, and then in one big sort of calamitous hit, just get Whiplash straight over the side, straight out of the arena in one big hit. And that was it. You could Endgame hadn't even backed away from the corner yet, and the team were already celebrating because Whiplash was out of the arena. It was done, and Endgame had won, and a really, really well-deserved win for Endgame. As soon as I set eyes on them in 2018, I knew it was going to be a successful robot, and this year was their year for sure. An interesting point: why do robots not use that part of the arena more? It's like they always go for the out of the arenas by the screws and by the taller areas of the battle box. That's such a perfect golden opportunity to get a robot over the wall. All you need is one hit, and Endgame started the season with an out of the arena, and they ended it with one as well. So a really perfect showing from them. Whiplash, so close yet so far. Maybe next time, maybe next time. Endgame was not the only robot to win a trophy though. Valkyrie won the Most Destructive Robot Award, and rightly so in my opinion. Not just in the main competition, but also in Bounty Hunters. It's been lethal. It's been very, very lethal, and without spoiling anything for the Bounty Hunters, it tends to bring chaos wherever it goes. And it's put on some of the best fights this year. It's ripped robots irreparably. So Valkyrie, I think, is very well deserving of the Most Destructive Robot Award. Then we had the Founders Award decided by Greg Monson and Trey Roski, I believe. And Scorpios won this one. And Scorpios is always a really quiet robot. It's a quietly successful robot. It takes down really big names. And it puts up an excellent fight every single time you see it. And I think it's finally time that they get something that just celebrates that, because they always put on a good show, and I think it's long overdue that they win something like this. So well done to Scorpios for winning that. Rookie of the Year goes to Rusty, I think mainly because of the fan response. Like, I was a little bit harsh on Rusty at the beginning of the season. I was a little bit harsh, but the builder and interviews with the builder that I've watched have made me realize that it is like a serious robot, and he's taken time designing it, and you know, it's not a robot to be, it's not just an exhibition bot, it's not just a rubbish robot, it is a proper competitive battle bot, and I'm very happy that it did well. I'm very happy that it won fights, because it almost says to me that getting to BattleBots isn't impossible. Not every robot has to be like 40 grand just to get to the show. So thank you, Rusty, for bringing hope to the generation of builders who have no money. So then we have the Grant Imahara Award for Best Design, of course, named after the late Grant Imahara, who unfortunately passed away. And this award was given to Chomp, and I think everyone thought it was going to be given to Chomp. The fact that that team built A six-legged walking robot, £500, six-legged walking robot with a turret hammer, a flamethrower, and got it to work without even any reliability problems or anything. That is incredible. That is incredible. And well deserved, well deserved. It was just fantastic to see Walker Chomp this season, and I hope they bring it back next season so much. It was just absolutely fantastic. Words, I cannot stress how much I love Walker Chomp. So, I think that concludes my review of the 2020 season of BattleBots. I'll release a video separately about the Bounty Hunter episodes, but thank you all very much for watching my reviews if you made it this far. I know there's been lots of gaps and episodes that I've missed, and I apologise for that. I've tried my best, but if you enjoyed it and you enjoyed my reviews, thank you very much. And if you didn't, then thank you for watching anyway. But yeah, it's been great fun reviewing my favourite show, and I hope to do it again next year. So, goodbye and see you next week, hopefully. And thank you very much for listening, and bye-bye.